Antarctica holds 90% of the Earth's ice and 70% of its fresh water. It is the coldest, driest, and most wind-battered environment on the planet. Thousands of years before humans ever saw this coastline, ancient Greek and Roman scholars were certain a southern landmass existed. They theorized the northern continents required a giant landmass in the south to keep the world in balance. They called it Terra Australis Incognita, the unknown southern land. For centuries, cartographers included this imaginary continent on maps, leaving a massive blank space for explorers to fill. That blank space began to vanish in 1820. Navigators from Russia, Britain, and the United States finally pushed through the sea ice to confirm that the southern coastline was real. Confirming the continent's existence shifted the global perspective. Antarctica was no longer a philosophical theory, it was a physical territory waiting to be claimed. Between 1897 and 1922, global powers entered the heroic age of exploration, characterized by a drive to physically dominate the interior of the ice. This era focused on a single, high-stakes objective, becoming the first human beings to stand at the geographic South Pole. On December 14, 1911, Roald Amundsen reached the pole. He succeeded by relying on dog sleds and skis to navigate the terrain, beating the competition by just over a month. The British team, led by Robert Falcon Scott, arrived to find Amundsen's flag already there. Scott and his 4 companions died from cold and exhaustion during their attempt to return to the coast. 3 years later, Ernest Shackleton attempted to cross the entire continent, but the environment itself stopped the expedition before it reached the mainland. Shackleton's ship, the Endurance, was trapped and eventually crushed by the pressure of the sea ice. His crew spent nearly 2 years surviving on drifting floes before their eventual rescue. Despite these losses, the high cost of exploration didn't discourage global interests. Instead, these survival stories and tragic outcomes turned the ice into a symbol of national prestige. By the mid-20th century, the era of exploration gave way to formal political control as nations began moving to secure permanent territory. 7 countries claimed specific slices of the continent. These borders were often ignored by rivals, leading to overlapping claims between the United Kingdom, Argentina, and Chile. With these territorial disputes intensifying, Antarctica was on a path toward the same militarization and resource conflict seen on every other continent. In 1959, 12 countries reached an agreement that changed the trajectory of the continent's history. They signed the Antarctic Treaty, which legally suspended all territorial disputes and banned all military activity on the landmass. The agreement dedicated the entire continent to peace and international scientific cooperation, making it a neutral zone for researchers. Today, thousands of researchers and support staff work at international stations, including McMurdo, Amundsen Scott, and India's Maitri Station. The treaty remains one of the world's most durable international agreements. It has effectively transitioned Antarctica from a site of potential conflict into a global center for shared knowledge. Scientists at these outposts analyze the frozen environment to reconstruct the Earth's atmospheric history. By extracting and measuring ice cores, researchers can sample tiny bubbles of air trapped in the ice for hundreds of thousands of years. These records show that millions of years ago, Antarctica was part of the supercontinent Gondwana. It was a warm landscape that supported forests and diverse animal life. Fossils of dinosaurs, trees, and marine life like this shell prove the continent once looked very different than the frozen wasteland we see today. Monitoring the modern ice sheet is now the primary way we track changes in global sea levels and the broader climate. Because the ice sheet regulates global temperatures, its stability is tied to the stability of the entire planet. The continent has become the primary site for understanding how our world is changing.